graphics, the new commercial, all done by our wonderful producer director Diana Rodriguez. Recently married, used to be Oliveras, now is Rodriguez. Still the great same person that she is. She's the one that really kind of steers the ship here. So we are back. I'm Trevor Horn. This is BVarsity Live Preview Show brought to you by Grapevine MSP Tech Services and Motor City GMC Buick. We're here on a special day on Wednesday. I'm joined along with Josh Bennett, John Metis, and Teddy Feinberg. No smiles from Teddy today.
He's in a serious mood.
So before we get into the season, obviously one other thing that you have to look forward to in the preview is I took a look back at the history of the SEYL, and that's another thing we talk about changes.
Yes.
Is there were league realignments. So Bakersfield Christian left the SSL, moved over to the SYL. To make room for them, East left the SYL, went to SEYL, and make room for BCHS in the SYL. McFarland is now coming to the SSL. So those are the three big changes that are moving on. I think the biggest one, other than Bakersfield Christian really getting finally a league that will challenge them week in and week out, is the fact that you finally have a league that is solidified on the East side. Whether you want to believe me or not, I know I'm a new guy. I've only been here 4 years. But when you look at Bakersfield and the way that the city landscape is now, I think anything north of Weibel and east of the 99 is considered the east side. So really, when you look at it, when you go from north down to Miramonte, and then you've got Highland, East, South, and football all in there, that is an east side league. And I think that league realignment is properly in place. We haven't had a new high school built in Kern County in the last 10 years, so there is no more switching around. You don't have a Liberty in the SSL anymore or anything like that. I think everybody is kind of in the league that they're supposed to be until, the school district or another city of Lamont gets a high school at some point. But I think for the time being, for at least the next 5 years, I think we're right where we need to be in leagues. And I think the SEYL is kind of neat. And yes, you've got a Foothill and a Miramonte, two teams that have not been very successful in recent years. North had a resurgent year, 9 wins. Highland last year went 8-0 before losing the final 2 games of the season. And then you look at South, a team that finally lost in the SEYL for the first time since they moved over into the league in 2014. So there's an upper echelon and then lower echelon, and then you move east right there in the middle, and I think it really kind of solidifies it. But what I wanted to do is I went back and I looked and, reminded you as readers, there's been some great football on the east side of town for a long time, and that can happen again with this competitive equity that we might have here on the east side. So that's another thing to look forward to. And then obviously we got help from Central Section historian Bob Barnett, who gave us some great historical facts. You look at East, a team that opened in 1938, that's the oldest school on the east side. If you consider BHS on the east side, I don't. That's Central Downtown Bakersfield, so relax, everybody. They only have 1 section title. You look at North, a team that almost went to a section championship last year. They haven't won one since 1954, so you see a lot of things happening. So you can check that out in the preview, and then obviously all the team pages after that. Let's look ahead to this year. Teddy, what really kind of intrigued you about the 2018 football season?
There's a couple things, Trev. I think I liked your SEYL story just because
it was scrap on.
Exactly. It was. It focused on some schools. I like the geographic rival standpoint of it, and I think that's kind of neat. But I think for me, to be honest with you, just with all the preview stuff we've been working on, just calling a spade, whether people want to know it or not, I think that my big takeaway, I'm just excited to see BHS. I mean, I'm excited to see everyone play this year, but I think they're going to be an excellent football team, and I'm excited to see, that's kind of my number one bullet point is just what they're going to do in 2018, honestly. If I had to say number one, that was something I really had my eye on right out of the chute.
And we don't have to wait for it because that's tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, St. Anna Bowl against Servite, a team out of the Trinity League. Servite is a team that's won state championships in recent years, but right now they're in a league with St. John Bosco and Modern Day, 2 teams that you could theoretically just put them both up there at number 1 in the nation and not bat an eye when you put them up there with IMG out of Florida. So that's an incredible thing that they have to be able to. That's a gauntlet they have to do, but here they have the drillers to start off with.
I mean, there's other things too. I just think that and everyone I spoke with, ultimately that team came up in conversation. It was inevitable, so I think that was just like.
Well, when you have so many senior leaders coming back, it really kind of lends itself to that. And they've got 5 or 6 Division I players on their team. And when you add a guy like Carl Jones in, and you can say whatever you want about kids transferring, that's the nature of the beast that we're in right now. Carl seems to be in a good spot, but you add him into that, and it's a totally different wrinkle that they didn't have before.
And you mentioned their Carl. You meant their secondary is legit. I mean, they got 4 D1 athletes in that secondary. That's nasty. And then obviously their quarterback. And I'm just also intrigued, honestly, to see. Conversely, I have a ton of respect for the Liberty football program. I think Coach Nixon's an excellent coach. I'll be interested to see how they challenge BHS. You know they're going to run the football, and you know that old cliche: you don't run away from speed, you run right at it. That's how you beat speed. So I'm interested by both of those teams, honestly, right out of the chute. I actually can't wait to see them take each other on this year. That was one of my first games last year, was watching both of them.
John, what intrigued you about this season?
Well, it was funny. So when Teddy started answering, the first thing that popped in my head was BHS. And I was like, I don't know if that would be a bad thing to say, just pick out one team. But it's only because, I've been here for almost a year, and last week was the first time that I've talked to Gola, head coach Paul Gola for BHS, and got to pick his brain a little bit about his coaching strategy, the players he has, the athletes. And so it was a few days ago, somebody new in town was asking me what team they should go see if they wanted to see a high school football game in Bakersfield. And I was like, well, go see BHS because they've got a lot of athletes. Gola obviously knows what he's doing. He's a well-coached team. And so I want to see how good they can be, not just in Kern County, but the central section, the state, all that. This kind of, it's cool to see teams have success on a broader scale than
yes, they transcend the area a little bit.
Well, and that's the thing that Ridgeview's done over the years. They went to 2 straight, state regional bowl games, and when you look at that team, that's something we're going to talk about in a little bit.
No doubt.
Josh, biggest takeaways going into the season, knowing that it's only, BHS is tomorrow night, and then everybody else starts except for who doesn't have a week 1 game? No, I think everybody plays. I think everybody plays, yeah.
Well, stemming off of what Teddy and John said, there's a lot of hype, a lot of hope surrounding BHS, Liberty, even Ridgeview. They all look good on paper. I think my biggest takeaway, though, is despite the down year that was last year, there were a couple, I don't want to say lower end, but a couple of Cinderella teams that kind of surprised everyone. Highland North, teams like that. Like, how are they going to rebound from having such a historic year and then, losing seniors and the turnaround, and how are they going to respond?
That's a really good point.
Well, and that's a great point, too, because you look at it, that's the preview that I'm going to have on Friday as we talk about all these high-end teams with new quarterbacks. Liberty's going to go with the 2-quarterback system to start off the season. Bakersfield Christian's going to go with the 2-quarterback system. North looked to Shannon Ferguson. He broke his hand, so he's out until September. Mm-hmm. So they got Cole Fields, a guy who has never played quarterback at the varsity level. He's going to be starting this year. Did I say Highland's got a new quarterback as well?
You did not. He was
only a sophomore.
They graduated 2 senior quarterbacks, which is crazy.
We go down the line. BHS is going to be playing 2 quarterbacks. Now, obviously, both of them have played quarterback successfully over the last few years with Carl Jones and Cam Williams. But we're talking about a lot of teams and a lot of good teams.
Yeah.
North won 9 games last year and went to the semifinals in D4. Highland, which went 8-0 before they lost the last 2 games, they got a new quarterback. Liberty, year in and year out, is one of the top teams in the central section. They've got new quarterbacks with Isaiah Hill deciding to only play basketball this season.
Yeah.
Bakersfield Christian graduates Braden Wingle, and now they've got a junior who came in from Dos Palace, and then Jake Moran, who is a transfer from BHS. He's a senior. So, you look at all those teams. Those are successful teams. They have to usher in new quarterbacks.
Yeah, all new quarterback. And I think, actually, Josh, I totally agree with Josh. And Trevor, you brought up Ridgeview. I totally agree with that, too. Josh's storyline about some of those teams like your Highlands and your North that had great years. I'm super excited to see how they bounce back, and I can't wait to see Ridgeview this season.
And then you look at Shafter. Shafter is finally in the SSL, which is the original way that the SSL was created to be a county team. Mm-hmm. With Bakersfield Christian going, you no longer have a Bakersfield team in that league. Now it's 2 schools from from Delano and Kennedy and Chavez. Then you've got the Wasco Shafter rivalry. You've got Taft. You've got Arvin, and you've got, who am I missing? Did I get everybody? I get all 7 teams.
McFarland, yeah.
Casey Quinn's in. So you add them into the fray. I think the biggest thing that you want to look at is how great Alex Aguilar can be this year for Shafter.
Honestly, Shafter's going to roll this year.
Yeah, theoretically, that's exactly what's
hate to say that, but they should roll. Yeah. Shafter should roll.
But then you look on the other side of the coin, teams like South, Kennedy, probably forgetting a couple others. They're returning 20, 30 seniors, almost all their starters from last year from 500 clubs. Like, are they going to be able to build into a better team, or are they going to be stagnant?
And Kennedy's one of the 8 schools with a new head coach, Mario Milano, who used to be a head coach, Delano. Now he takes over for Dennis Moody, who Dennis Moody really rebuilt that Kennedy program. That Kennedy program was disastrous. They had a 33-game losing streak before Dennis Moody came in, and then he went on in year 2, won a Central Section title. In year 3, won another Central Section title, all while going like 3-3 in the SSL because they were playing in D6. So you look at it, I mean, you've got to do that too. You've got Christian Johnson, who was, an assistant on a very good, very high-level team at Ridgeview. Now he's taking over Miramonte, and he's, his eyes are wide open going, wow, I got to really build this from the bottom up. You got a guy like Chad Greider, and Brandon Decker and Ben Goffin it up at Kern Valley, Mario Milan, who were former head coaches, back in the fray as head coaches again. So you got first-year coaches. You got 2 really young guys, and Tyler Schillhabel over at Independence. I did it.
You did it.
You said it right.
Josh Bacher, who's only been in the county 2 years. After 2 years, after playing football at Lewis and Clark State up in Oregon, goes down to Wasco as a running back, comes in, is a 2-year assistant at Wasco, and then now he's the head coach at Golden Valley. Then at Wasco, you got a guy, Chad Martinez, who took over at the end of the season when Rick Stewart was diagnosed with an illness. He took over as an interim basis, and now he's the head coach, and he's a young dude as well, and he's not from the county. So there's a lot of moving parts, and then like you said, Teddy, you got all the Central Coast schools coming in. That right there, that's kind of what intrigues me, because I've got Arroyo Grande in my top 10.
Yeah.
You got to add in a team like that, and then you add those teams into the fray when it comes to the playoff predictions, and I know we're going to look way ahead. We got 11 more weeks until the playoffs are even seeded, but you look at that too. It always was, Bakersfield always gets snubbed in D1 because there's not enough coaches here to offset all the teams in Fresno. Well, now you've got these Central Coast teams that may not have that allegiance to Fresno. So it may change the whole dynamic on how the playoffs are seeded as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an intrigue to me as well. So, and when you look at a season, like you said, Josh, where only Rosamond played in a Central Section championship from Kern County, and they played in D6.
Yeah.
Everything else, that night of the Central Section champions, the lights were out in Bakersfield.
Yeah.
In Kern County, other than in Rosamond. And that's incredible, is that we had a bunch of teams that only advanced to the semifinals, and nobody got to the Central Section champions for the first time since 1992 from the Valley portion of Kern County. That's an anomaly, not the norm.
That's not going to happen this year.
It can happen this year.
I think the football is going to be much better than it was last year.
Well, yeah, and it just kind of predicated, and I don't want to say that it was the senior class last year that wasn't very good.
No, it was just
but you look
down
at
here,
it,
it happens.
I mean, there was only 3 guys that went D1, 2 of them from BHS, and they're at Sac State and Cal Poly, and Caden Ochoa and Justin McGill, and then Michael Bray's at UNLV, and that was it. Those are the only guys that have moved on to Division I 4-year program. So when you look across the board, there's about a dozen guys that are coming back.
3 on BHS alone this year. So it's like,
actually, there's probably going to be more than that.
Well, yeah, there's more, but I'm matching what you said. But I mean, yeah, it's just. It just feels like it's a better feeling than it felt last year. There's more hope. There's more hype around some of these teams.
And we're going to finish off the segment with that. There was a lot of hope, and we're excited about it. We're glad to be back.
Yep.
We're going to take a quick break. Teddy, you sticking, or you got to go?
I'm sticking.
Let's go to do. All 4 of us are going to do our predictions when we come back. We're going to fire it away. We'll be right back.